Hello people, I'm your comic book gamer. Today I'm going to be talking about American Alien, which is a book I wanted to talk about for a long time now, but I was waiting for the entire series to wrap up so that way I could talk about it as a whole. So yesterday, issue number 7, the final issue came out, so now it's time to talk about it. So, this book is great. You definitely need to read it. I promise it will not disappoint. And yeah, just go check it out. Now, that is it for the non-spoiler section of the video. The rest of the video is going to be spoilers, so there's your warning. Anyways, let's get into it. So, I'm going to be jumping all around, not really starting at issue 1, then moving to issue 7. I'm just going to be jumping all around some of my favorite parts of the book and things like that. I'm not going to be going in depth about every little detail of it, but I will be talking about a lot of different things in the book. So anyways, if I had to describe this story in one word, it would be character, because that's what this book is full of. Just great character moments, great character arcs. It's just fantastic. To me, the best issues are 4 and 5, issue 5 being my favorite, issue 4 being a very close second. Issue 4, just character moments all over the place. From Lois Lane's great introduction that just lets you know what she's all about in one page, and it's like a perfect synopsis of who Lois Lane is and what she's all about, and I just loved it. And then after that, we get this great sort of coming-of-age speech from Oliver Queen, to where he's talking to Clark and he's like, growing up is becoming a better version of yourself. I used to mistake like arrogance for confidence, and talking about how he's grown up a lot from being just this party guy that would use any excuse to party. And it's like, I loved seeing that. We see that Oliver Queen has grown up a lot since when we saw him in issue 3, and he's just some dude that no one, like sort of a frat boy basically, and he just gave a great speech there. Then after that, we meet Lex Luthor, which just introduction of Lex Luthor is so perfect. This is one of my favorite Lex Luthors ever. I want to see more of this Lex Luthor. Please, DC, let Max Landis do like a Lex Luthor miniseries or something, because his Lex Luthor is just spot on. It's so perfect. But anyways, Lex Luthor goes on this rant talking about how people are too afraid. Maybe there could be someone that could help, and they shouldn't be afraid of necessarily powerful figures or things like that. And he goes on this little speech, and by that speech, he inadvertently creates Superman. Well, Clark Kent already had the idea of Superman in his head, sort of, like just different things. Like, he knew he wanted to help people, but with Lex Luthor, that sort of nudged him a little bit more. And then after that, he has this great conversation with Dick Grayson, another great character moment, to where Dick Grayson talks to him, and like, you have these two going back and forth, because Dick Grayson is analyzing Clark Kent. He's like, what's this guy all about? Because Clark like reads some stuff on him, and he's like, you shouldn't be able to do that, because Clark uses X-ray vision to see what's in his pocket, and he's like, this guy's peculiar, but I don't know what's off about him. And so they have just great back and forth. And when they're talking, they talk about the Bat Vigilante in Gotham. Is he real? Is he not? Because this is the part where people don't know if Batman's a myth or not, if he's actually real or not. And Dick Grayson's like, no, of course I don't think he's real. But if he was, I'd say there needs to be a counter to his darkness. There needs to be hope to his vengeance. And so that also helps inspire Superman, which I think is great. Also, because of the fact that later on, we know that Superman is going to inspire Nightwing, so I think it's fantastic that Dick Grayson inspired Superman. I just love that idea. And this also pushes Batman to look even more into Clark, even before, because he knew that Clark, earlier on in issue 3, Clark had impersonated Bruce Wayne, sort of, and so Bruce Wayne was already on the trail, but him talking to Dick Grayson pushed him even more, to where he's like, I need to talk to this guy. So we get a moment to where Clark and Batman meet, and that's a pretty cool moment. Not a whole lot is said there, but it's a cool moment. And just, yeah, so much character in that one issue. That's just one issue. And nevertheless, the entire series where there's so many great character moments. And you also have great character arcs. For instance, Jonathan Kent goes on a great character arc in one issue. The very first issue, we see that Jonathan Kent is a little afraid, but like anyone would be if they adopted an alien baby. He's just like, before it was like, because he's sort of getting a little bit more weirded out by Clark, because of the fact that before it was just, okay, the kid's really strong, but now the kid is randomly floating up in the sky. What is this? He's sort of confused, and he's a little scared, but then partway through the issue, we realize he's like, this is my kid. It's the only kid I got. I love this kid. Weird's good. Who cares about normal? This is my kid. I'm going to accept him and love him any way that he is. And it's just a great moment. And we have this, because part of that, like, Jonathan Kent was a little, like, standoffish from Clark. But then after this, he's trying to help Clark fly any way he can. Like, they're going through the cornfield with Jonathan Kent just holding him up over his arms. He's like, can you feel yourself taking off now? And he, like, puts him in the back of his pickup truck and just starts flooring it. And he's like, okay, do you feel the wind picking you up or something? And it's just, Yes, that's such a great moment. That's just a little character arc that happened in one issue, and it was fantastic and perfectly executed. And then Clark Kent himself goes on a huge character arc from beginning to end. We see that a big theme throughout this entire book is the fact that Clark feels like an outsider. He feels out of place. He feels like maybe trash left behind because he doesn't know why he's here on this planet. He knows that he's not human. He's confused. He's like, why would they leave me here? No one's come in contact with him. You see that the reason he wears the S on his chest is because it was painted on the side of the rocket he came in, and he thought, maybe since I'm on TV all the time for the stuff I'm doing, if I have this S on my chest, it'll be broadcasted and they'll see it or something and they'll come for me. And we see that he really is longing for those people. And also, in issue 3 on the cruise ship, when he gets a little drunk, he starts screaming in space and up at the sky, and he's like, I'm happy now. I don't need you. I don't care that you left me here. I'm happy. And so we see there's a lot of unresolved issues there with the fact that Clark is confused. But then by the end at issue 7, when he's fighting Lobo, and Lobo's just like, I'm gonna make you dead like the rest of Krypton, like all the other Kryptonians. And Superman looks at him and goes, I'm not from Krypton. I'm from Kansas. And I was just like, that is such a perfect moment. And they put it at the very end of the last issue. I was like, that moment just encapsulates Superman so great. And I loved it. And it was just, such a perfect moment. I loved it so much. I'm so glad I was in this book. I'm not from Krypton. I'm from Kansas. And I was like, yes. And that's Superman. Like, that's, the whole thing coming into a circle. It's completed. The character arc was completed for this book. And I was like, yes, I love seeing that, because up until then he felt like an outsider. He's like, he was dealing with things, and now he's just like, who cares about Krypton? Who cares about space and stuff? I was raised here. This is where I'm from. I'm not Kryptonian. I'm human, and I loved that moment so much. And then there are also little moments like when Superman first really appears in issue number 5, to where Parasite is just out and about and he's causing havoc, and so obviously normal people can't stop him. Superman shows up also, by the way. This Parasite is a prototype, so he feeds off of electricity, not of humans. So yeah, but anyways, when they go in, like the SWAT is surrounding the area that Parasite's in, and they're like, this is not gonna go good. Superman shows up, he's like, what do you want me to do? Because that's exactly what a normal person would do. They wouldn't jump in there and be like, I got this because I got powers. Clark's like, you're an experienced SWAT officer. What do you want me to do? I'm ready to go, but what do you want me to do? And so they go in like a tactical way, and Clark's able to take out Parasite, and thought that was so cool. But one of my favorite moments, maybe my favorite moment, it's either this or the I'm not from Krypton, from Kansas moment, is when Clark meets Lex Luthor. Well, not Clark, but when Superman meets Lex Luthor for the first time, because we already had Clark meet Lex Luthor in issue number 4, but in issue number 5, Superman and Lex Luthor, such an amazing moment. Superman goes because he finds out that Parasite was created by Lex Luthor, because once he defeats Parasite, he asks him what happened, who did this to you, and Parasite's like, Luthor. So he goes, he breaks through the window, and he's like, you're going to go to jail for this and everything. And Lex goes on this huge speech. By the way, every time Lex shows up, it's just dialogue bubbles everywhere, which I love, because he's a smart guy with a lot to say every single time. He's not just going to have like short little 2 sentences. No, he's got a lot to say, and you are going to hear about it. So he goes on this whole rant about how he's just like, yeah, I have alibis upon alibis upon alibis. Who's going to testify against me? You're a private citizen. What are you, an idiot? Because he goes in this speech to where he's like, I thought maybe you were something like sort of an evolution of a human, a Superman, but now I see you're just an idiot. He's like, you may be the bigger man, but I'm the bigger animal. And I'm like, this is the perfect Lex Luthor. Please give me more of this guy. And then by the end of the issue, we see later that that Lex is like, hey, did you fix my window? And the lady's like, yeah, but on. He's like, okay, good. Goes into his office, sees that on the window there's the big Superman S, and he's like, and it's written Superman on there because he chose the name because Lex Luthor mentioned Superman earlier. I'm like, this is so great. Lex Luthor inadvertently created Superman and gave him his name. I'm like, that's so perfect. I love the fact that Superman was inspired by Lex Luthor and Dick Grayson, and the name came from Lex Luthor. I'm like, Lex Luthor created his greatest enemy. That is just so great, and I love the fact that Max Landis thought of that. Now I want to talk a little bit about issue 2, because that is the darkest issue in this entire series. And when I first read it, I was like, I had to think about it a little bit, reread it, and think about it, reread it again, and think about it more. because that issue is the growing up issue. This is the issue where we see that Clark is not even close to being Superman yet. He's like a 16-year-old kid. He's out, he's like having beers with his buddy when he finds out that Pete Woods, his best friend, that his uncle was like involved in a, well, not involved, but a victim of a shooting, because these guys came, they shot up a gas station, and I mean Pete Ross's uncle, I think I said Pete Woods earlier, but anyways, Pete Ross, his uncle, was there just as a, you know, a victim standing by. He hid while a lot of people got shot up at a gas station. So Clark shows up there, and the sheriff's like, hey, do you want to tell me anything? Is there anything you know about this? Because a lot more people in Smallville know that Clark is Superman, will know that he's got these powers, which makes sense because of the fact that it is a small town, and obviously Jonathan and Martha Kent would be very scared, not knowing what to do, and be like telling people and be like, my kid's like this, and so it makes sense that a lot of people in Smallville know. So that's how like the Landis versus Smallville is. A lot of people in town know that Clark has these powers. Not everyone, but a good amount of people know. And Clark's like, no, nothing I can do. And then Pete Ross is like, dude, you found this chick's cat in like 2 minutes. You could find these guys easy. Why aren't you doing anything? And Clark's just like, I don't know. And so then later we see that Clark confronts the people, and they got guns and everything, and they shoot Clark. Clark's like, no, just listen to me, don't do it. And they just keep shooting him, and then Clark accidentally burns a guy's arms off, and he sends another guy like through the building. And it's like, I was like, this is interesting because, you know, generally when he's little and he makes mistakes, it's by, oh, he took down a barn or something. He's not really hurting anyone. This time he burned a guy's arms off. So I was thinking about what I thought about this. I was like, how do I feel about this? But then I was like, you know what? I like this because it shows that Clark makes mistakes, because in order to learn from something, you know, you have to generally do failure first. You have to make a mistake to learn from it. So I really like this. It really helped develop his character to show that, hey, he made a mistake first and he learned from it later, and I really like that. Also, the art in every issue changes, in case you didn't know. My favorite art was from issue number 5, but a close second was Jock's art from number 7. Jock is definitely an acquired taste. I think he works better with darker stories like Batman than like Superman, but I would say he's basically second to none as far as setting up shots goes, like the way the panels and everything are set up and how it's like the close-ups and wide angles and stuff. I don't think anyone sets them up as good as Jock. Like, he just kills it in that department. His art is not my favorite. It's good, but it's not my favorite. But the way he sets up the panels and the shots, it's amazing, like the way it's all done. And probably my favorite, well, I'd say it's hard to say, but my 2 favorite art moments of the book, of issue number 7, is the 2-page spread, you know, where it's Superman over Metropolis. We see the building that's been destroyed. I really like that. And when Lobo tackles Superman, smashes him to the ground. Just the art on that was so beautiful. And then when Lobo and Superman start fighting, it's very much a street fight instead of like a punching each other through buildings and into space kind of thing, even though it ends up with Superman throwing him into space. But yeah, so yeah, the art changes a lot, and I felt like it fit each issue perfectly. Like, the first one is very fun. Issue number 2 is Jonah Hex style, dark and gritty sort of art. Issue number 3 is the most fun and vibrant style art that is in all of the series. And so yeah, just it keeps changing to fit the story, and I really like that. I thought that was a cool concept. So yeah, let's talk about issue number 7 before I end the video, because that is the final issue of the entire series. The issue opens up with Clark texting Jimmy Olsen. He's like, hey, I told Lois I loved her last night. She didn't say anything. She just kind of groaned, and then she woke up and left this morning before I woke up. So it doesn't seem like we're on good ground right now. This really sucks, and he's really nervous and not real in a great position right now. And then by the end of the issue, after, you know, Superman's fought Lobo, been through all this stuff, at the end of the issue, we see that Clark is admitted into the hospital because, you know, Clark Kent got too close to the story and was in the rubble. You know, that's the alibi considering he's Superman. So, yeah, when he's in the hospital, Lois comes and visits him. And he's like, what are you doing? You should be out there, you know, reporting the story. It's a huge story. Because this was the first time we saw the true Superman out there. Before, it was sort of like beta Superman. He wasn't quite released Superman yet. He wasn't the actual Superman. He was sort of, he was still like testing out the waters. He wasn't quite there yet to where now he's actual Superman. So this is huge, huge news. Like Superman's all over the world. Everyone's like, it's Superman guy. So you figure Lois Lane, one of the biggest reporters, would be on top of that. But she's like, I tried, I was out there, but that whole time I was watching Superman fight, I was thinking about you. I was thinking about, what are you doing? It's like, she was like, you idiot, you shouldn't have been out there trying to get the story. He's like, I want to be, he's like, that's exactly what you would have done. You're the bravest person I know. And they have a great moment, and she tells Clark that she does love him, and that entire time she's thinking about him. They kiss, and then it ends with the two of them looking at each other, smiling, and she goes, what happens next? And I was like, just mind blown, perfect ending. Like mind blown in the fact that it wasn't like, oh, plot twist, and the fact that it's everything that I wanted. That's what I loved so much about it, and it was just so great. This final issue caps out. It's not my favorite issue of the series, like I said before. Issue number 5 is, but it caps out the series perfectly because it resolves the whole Clark feeling like he's not exactly human issue. It resolves that, like, it finishes that story arc, and also it shows that Lois and Clark are two characters that are meant to be together. I love that. I love the fact that Landis put the exclamation point on the fact that Clark is human first, Kryptonian second, and that Lois is the one for him. And I was like, yes, because we've had years of the New 52 of Superman and Wonder Woman. I'm like, I hate that crap so much. And now we got Superman and Lois back together, and I was like, yes, I love it. I love this Lois, by the way. This Lois is like such a great characterization of Lois. Just exactly what I loved like during the John Byrne run. But anyways, so yeah, overall, American Alien is not my favorite Superman storyline of all time. It is one of my favorites. It's great, but it is the best thing to happen to Superman since the death of Superman. What I mean by that is, I see people on like my Twitter feed that don't read comics talking about how great American Alien is, and I'm like, I didn't think that person read comics at all, but they're actually reading comics now, and they're reading Superman. Like, I figured they would have read Batman or something because of Dark Knight, but no, they're reading Superman, and I think that's great. Max Landis is getting the general public interested in Superman, wanting to read Superman. I'm like, that's fantastic. That's why I say this is the greatest thing to happen to Superman since the death of Superman, because that was the last time you had the general public that was like, I need to pick up a Superman book, to where now we have people picking it up because Max Landis, and I'm like, and because of the fact that it's fantastic. So yeah, really happy about that, and please let me know in the comments below what you guys think of the book if you read it, and what is your favorite issue. Like I said before, mine is number 5, favorite issue of the entire series, but please let me know in the comments below what your favorite issue is, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.